of investment, like the previous government, they targeted gaming, pharmaceuticals. Which niches or sectors is this government targeting?
No, these happened. I mean, in the sense, you grab the opportunity when it comes. The importance that you notice the opportunity and you don't diddle, you just go for it. So I still remember, I mean, I was chairman of the MFSA in the '97. That was only 3 years after the new legislation came, when we went from offshore to onshore. You recall that we had to choose between applying to become members of the EU and giving up our offshore dream. And we did. And we went for the onshore legislation, massive legislation, very modern, rigorous institution and so on. We always said no to certain type of financial institutions, or sometimes originating from dubious areas, and it paid off. Then the question of the iGaming came by accident. There were 2 betting companies in the UK who quarreled with the UK government, etc., and they came and located in Malta. I believe 2 others went to Gibraltar. They liked what they saw. Others came, like the herd instinct, and they would say if they are there and they are very pleased with what they have, there's something happening in Malta, and they followed. And now we have, I believe, about 500 licenses or so. So that was the iGaming. The same for yachting, international yachting. You provide the infrastructure. Now it looks like we have a new phase of investment, which is looking at Malta to operate from. It's not just a hub. We used to go about the hub. It's almost the same. However, location-wise, the region has become very, very unstable. I mean, you can't get worse than wars and destruction of schools, hospitals, people being maimed. It's a big disaster. Migration on a big scale. And Malta is there and providing a good base for families to live, companies to operate from. Universities can be set up for the region, hospitals as well, providing services, and a lot of investors, especially from the region, not necessarily from Malta, are seeing this potential. They've done their sums, and this is the kind of investment they're looking at in Malta.
How can you strike a balance, though, between making it easy to register companies in Malta and keeping rigorous checks? It's obviously, there's the recent controversy about companies being registered and withdraw something. So how do you strike that balance?
We have to be careful here. The fact, as I said, that Malta is attractive for companies. A lot of companies were in Libya. International companies, Japanese companies, Chinese companies were in Libya, and their choice was to go back to China, to Japan, or to the UK, or wherever they came from. The other alternative was for them to locate in Malta until things improve. That can be for quite a long while, but a lot of them, the market is still there. People have got incomes, there's demand. There are a lot of normal people living in Libya still suffering, and there's a lot of potential. And they're locating in Malta. So the fact that, and new ones as well, not just the old ones, but also new ones who don't necessarily operate for Libya, but it could be for Egypt, for the Middle East. I know what I'm talking about. Now, the fact that then you have some people who try on this system, commit fraud or mislead, it doesn't mean that the whole model is wrong. It's just that some people might have been fraudulent or whatever. So you need a due diligence and so on. But the fact that you have an alleged corrupt persons, we had corrupt judges, we had corrupt notaries, we had corrupt doctors, unfortunately. That happens. The point is that you have a system which brings them to the surface, and the law takes its place. But we just can't say, oh, these companies coming in Malta with loads of money. Wait a minute. If they are declaring them, they are not laundered. When you declare them, the bank needs to know where they came from which other bank came from, and so on. So not all companies which are establishing here are the type whereby, a big story about money coming in, millions and so on. At the same time, we must admit that a lot of people in Libya and their families who are well-to-do want to locate in Malta with one way or another, you know, because they fear for their lives and their children. Now, we haven't had a scheme for them. We have a residential scheme. They might use that. We have the passport scheme, but that's not necessarily, might not meet their needs. But they could have used the system. Well, we will review it and see whether the minimum is too small and so on. And we put, you know, also strengthening, because there are so many stories. I mean, you're talking about this one. There was also the incident in the financial service in the iGaming as well. We need to strengthen our economic crimes unit in the police, and we are helping in trying to get the expertise and training, because today's crime is very sophisticated. You need very good IT people, forensic people in the financial crime. So I can assure you that we're working to strengthen these units, especially our unit, which is placed in my ministry. The FIU is doing wonderful work. And however, it needs also other units to work with. You know, when it passes the investigation, it needs to somebody who is of that caliber, which can take up that alleged crime and investigate it. I think, I'm not going to shock anybody, we don't have that type of expertise, where we have forensic experts in financial who can go to a bank and see how the flows are going and so on and so forth. Like a sophisticated crime in the police, sometimes they get foreign experts. We might need foreign assistance as well here to help the people who are already here doing a better job.
So in a sense, have we bitten off more than we can chew? And I'm not saying this government, I'm saying previous government as well. We've attracted all you know, these financial companies.
It goes for everything. I mean, can't you say that we were with 1 million and tourists, and we've gone to 1.5 million, now we have more pickpocketers? Yeah. So what do? We try to reduce the tourism? No, you try to weed out the criminals, you try to have more surveillance and so on. Of course, I tend to agree that there could be a capacity problem, you know, whether in tourism, wherever. But if you are, you know, I think the best response is to invest and build up your capacity, not to give up the you know, the workload, so to speak. So I mean, if you can't cope, then you strengthen, you invest. If you're making money, you should have enough to invest. Strengthen your regulatory units, the intelligence units. I think here it's more a question of intelligence, and you know, whereby it's not a question of having a gun with a uniform and go near the catamaran and wait for the first mafioso to come. The way is to know who is coming, background, exchange information with the Italian police, and that's where we're thinking of building a special unit, whereby they share information with customs, with VAT, with income tax, excise, and also ETC. I can assure you that when you have a good unit and they will investigate, you know, things will you don't need Sherlock Holmes.
And now, speaking from a purely political point of view, how come the government hasn't commented on Joe Sandwood's case? Because obviously, as he was the Labour Party, so haven't you felt the need to just deplore the FPO, issue some sort of comment or reassurance that something's going to be done to?
But what do you expect the government to do? I mean, the fact that, and I can assure you that, you know, anything of that nature will have a response internally in the government. You know, my ministry, other ministries, the security and so on, will start looking at how things could have happened and so on and so forth. So the fact that happens, even though it's a police case and so on, but somebody who how would I say, tricks the system or whatever, it could be a notary. We've got 6 notaries who've been using other people's money and so on, and investigation is carried out. I didn't have any statement yet, because the police are still investigating. We have a container coming and with cigarettes and so on and so forth. I mean, that means, you know, things are happening. In other words, if they don't happen, you'd say because they are weak. If they happen, sometimes you are more alarmed. I'm not alarmed if they are caught. I'm disappointed if they are not caught. So we have installed an extra scanner at the Freeport. We're trying to get, what I am trying to get at, whether it's income tax, say the tax compliance unit, whether it's also the excise customs, is you need systems, software and so on, which will be foolproof. In other words, even corrupt officials would not be able to fool, because that's the problem. I'm sure other countries have this in place, and we are strengthening them and they're on the IT side. But still, Guardia di Finanza, every day they're on RAI, this were caught, criminals here, criminals there. Does it show that they are hopeless? We know that they are doing their work. So you have to balance. If you don't hear, sometimes there could be lack of surveillance. So I'm more pleased when they are caught. So in this case, justice will take its place. People will be questioned, connections, contacts, and so on. The same for the Freeport. We want to see how this disappeared and came back, and so on. And people will be interviewed, but that's the course of justice. So I don't need we need to be alarmed just because we hear the case. We should be alarmed if they don't surface, rather.
And with the citizenship scheme, there was a social development fund was set up. And we haven't heard much about it, do you?
Yes, well, we're discussing this today because I want to know how much money we're getting and whether we're our target and so on. No, the arrangement was, it's initial stages. I mean, all the money is coming into the consolidated fund, let's put it this way. However, the arrangement is that government would, well, the budget would keep only 1/3 of it, and 2/3 would go into the wealth fund. So at the moment it's all revenue, but in the future it will also be an expenditure because they will be handed over to the wealth fund, whereby they will be invested. But as again, I mean, we have to see the first whole year crop, and we'll be hearing about it. But I can assure you, they will be reported in the budget. The Treasury will report them as revenues, and we will also report how much money we've had so far, irrespective of how many people are in the queue, are being, passing through diligence tests and so on. What we can say is how many have actually got the passport and therefore have paid the full amount to the revenue.
So are you in a position to say how much is in the fund?
They will be reported.
And what is it going to be spent on? Is there a plan for that?
Whether we have a target?
No, what is the money going to be spent on from this wealth fund?
So far?
So far and in the future?
No, I mean, we will be reporting it. I mean, at the moment is that ID will then give us the report. We have estimates, but all the information has been given in the media of how many so far applied and so on, to my knowledge.
What I want to know is, there's this wealth fund, and the government had said that is going to be spent on certain social projects and things like that.
Yes, in order to allocate. But you don't start with 2 million or 1 million, but it will, hopefully in the not too distant future, it will be set up. Also, we're also awaiting the National Development Bank to be set up as well. At the moment it's passing through diligence and so on, and discussions with the Commission. And once those are finalized, the two will be announced close to each other.
And given today's low interest environment, are you worried that certain asset bubbles might be building up, say, particularly in the housing sector in Malta? Do you see a problem in that regard? With
the low interest...
low interest rates in general?
Yes.
Do you see a problem of some asset bubbles building up, maybe in the housing sector and some other sectors?
We've had these low interest rates now for a long time. We haven't so far. Property did not collapse as in many other countries. At the same time, it kept quite stable. It is on the increase because there's a demand for it, so it's doing well. And it's got its strength back in the sense of financially, because it had a lot, we still have a lot of a number of non-performing loans, but the important point is that the banks make provision for them. But inflation-wise, we are at the moment at about 1.5%, it's a bit less than 1.5%, which is a good rate. It might be the highest, but I can assure that many countries would have loved to have an inflation rate of that much, because the ideal, inflation rate is 2%, and we're not there yet. We don't want it to be higher. Okay, so we have to be careful where it comes from, but it's still low by international by historical standards.
In a sense, deflation is a problem as well. So obviously, inflation is always seen as a demon.
The important point is the productivity. In other words, you would expect a bit of inflation when there is growth. The deflation is in Greece, Portugal, and other countries which have high unemployment, high youth unemployment. I mean, I was very glad to look at Malta's youth unemployment amongst the lowest in Europe, and very close to Austria and Germany, which is a good show, and we should be proud of that our unemployment rate is low, but especially so of youth unemployment.
And exports have been declining as well. What's that down to?
What do you say about exports?
They've been declining gradually.
No. This is Malta is so small that you have to read really, not between the lines, but you have to declassify it and look at it properly. There are various flows in the exports. There's the question of oil bunkering. Now, we are not an oil exporting country, but we export oil, which we import the previous day or that same day. That's oil bunkering. So you have to remove that, and it's sizable. It's bigger than the whole manufacturing sector. Okay? So you have to remove it from your equation and look at the manufacturing sector. Even there, the manufacturing sector, you have to, again, look at the ST Electronics, which is a sizable turnover and export, because they also import products of high value and re-export them after they add value added. And then look at the rest of the manufacturing sector. Now, if let's say there are over 20,000 people working in the manufacturing sector, and in ST there are over 2,000, still important, but you've got another 18,000 left. So how is the export performance of those manufacturing units, no matter how small, where about 18,000 people are working? It's positive. So manufacturing overall is growing, exports I'm talking about. Now, the ST and electrical sector is at the moment showing a fall in their exports. They tell us that it is temporary, or it will not affect their employment. So this is the situation. I'm not upset with our manufacturing performance. It was declining for a long time. Now it's seeing there is also investment in it. Now, would I want it to be better? Of course I do. And however, to do that, we need to invest. And that's where the life sciences and new type of manufacturing investment should come in order for us to be competitive and export more for the future. In Malta, the secret is diversification. So no sector can be taken for granted, or you think that it's too small for as being important. Every small sector, whether it's fish farming, whatever, manufacturing, service, iGaming, whatever it is, service, they're all important, because Malta's economy has to be diversified. Otherwise, we'll always get shocks when a big sector has a downturn.
The Maltese economy is doing very well compared to the rest of
yes.
the EU. What is that down to? Is there one factor?
No, this is it. All these sectors, first of all, remember that there were obstacles on the supply side. The fact that a lot of women didn't offer themselves in the labour force. There were a lot of vacancies before. And the fact that now with free childcare centres, tax credits, the tapering programs and so on, have pushed a lot of people onto the labour force. Even the unemployed, we'll be presenting the positive results of those schemes in the future. That helped. That helped. At the same time, there is the stability. It's pro-business government. Now that is, how would I say, is noticed by investors, whether they are Maltese or whether they are foreigners. It's a government you can do business with and invest. And you know, whenever they come up, you know, there's this bureaucratic, let's go and solve it. This can do. I've been saying, there's a lot of energy working. I mean, here, we're not on a shutdown. We could have taken 2 or 3 weeks holiday. We're still there at it. This week we had a cabinet meeting. It was on the following 2 days, you know, of Santa Maria, or, you know, there you are. So, you've got a government which is pro-business, and also no idea is how would I say, put down just because it doesn't sound correct. We look into it and see its potential, and it's paying off. This is the secret of it all, and that's why I have to turn a bit political, and that's why the opposition is baffled. Because honestly, in their hearts of hearts, they believe that this Labour government would not succeed. So when they're seeing this youngish and doing, you know, this government always going on and so on with a lot of activity, it is baffled, honestly baffled. And unfortunately, if it were to scrutinize government on certain issues, including investment and so on, people will believe them. But I think the things they're coming up with are no longer credible. I mean, they've managed, for example, and I'll bring this issue up, of the guarantee. They managed to brainwash everybody that it's a bad thing, that the government is guaranteeing something for the private sector. Well, it's not like that, because in the council we discussed this with the AIB, that the government, there are certain activities which the private sector would not go into. In economics, to our students, we call it market failure. In other words, nobody will build a lighthouse. What for? How are you going to collect the dues? Or bridges or public roads, unless it's a private road. And that's where government normally goes in, and the old fashioned model was to do it itself. The government would build the lighthouse, build the bridge, build the house, and so on. There are now in Germany and many other countries where they will get the private sector to build it with their own money, and then there must be some guarantee, not money guarantee for the moment, of buying that service.
Very nice issue though. At the moment there is a money guarantee. You've got 260 million. I know it's that, but it's...
Yes. But even so, we have also had money guarantees. It's not, when I said, where somebody put words in my mouth, that's unique or something. Yeah, it's unique. So was Malta, so was Project Volt's finance, unique. In what sense where Project Finance was unique? They packaged, they got land from Malta, which then they leased back to Malta, and they packaged a 320 million debt from BOV, and the government provided a guarantee. Find out whether project finance is public or private, and you'll find that it's private. So even the government guaranteeing a private company, Project Volts, which is an SPV, a strange animal, but we've provided 320 for 25 years, not 25 months, 25 years. When was it done? When everybody was distracted. I'm not saying that they did it on purpose when everybody was there, but everybody was distracted with the election and the parliament opening, not opening. And I still remember when the courier came to my house in the evening and he gave me a document from Tonio Fenech. He said, look, we have got a problem, please come. I came here in this same place. They had a presentation where they said, look, we have to do this for the sake of Malta not to default on its loan of 25 years previously from DEFA. It's a German bank, and they didn't have money to pay it back. It was a bullet loan, they didn't have the money to pay it back. In fact, they were borrowing money to pay the interest on all that. So now, our kids are going to be burdened with a 25-year loan, okay, which the government is guaranteeing, but 25-year loan, which has to be paid by the consumers of electricity on a plant which we're going to pull down soon, with the tall chimney, the Delimara one. And a debate in the parliament, of course, we're distracted with other things. But the point is, that was very serious for the country. We're close to a default, and nothing happened. Now, this time, we're talking over 22 months, what is being left out from the issue is when it comes to the money guarantee, it's not a question that it's only for 22 months. The fact that the government, in order to not to have state aid issues, is demanding, as the EU demands, that we charge for the difference between the market rate and what they have borrowed because of the and we've charged just a bit less than 9 million. So where it comes to the financial, it's ironic that we're making a big fuss about the financial guarantee when actually there is not an issue. At least this is the way I see it. And where there is an issue, should the government guarantee things for Malta? Because we thought Malta might not survive, you know. So the companies asked Malta to stand by that for the next number of years we will buy electricity. Malta has already given its word, there is an agreement. But this special agreement, the guarantee, is that the government will stand by that if Malta were to default, the government will be there because we need the electricity for the country. And that issue has to go to the Commission. The Maltese Parliament and the Citygate went to the Commission. That was Malta. The project vaults went to the Commission as well. So it's normal for things that SPVs and similar arrangement, they have to go to the Commission.
Well, why couldn't the electric assets up as collateral for this loan? And that's what I don't understand. You've got some very big players in the consortium, Siemens, SOCAR. Surely they have enough assets to...
They do. They have put on the table, and that is what took a long time to do the due diligence, and there are the best English lawyers who have certified that those 90 million are real. So they have letters of credit up to 90 million, which is a 20%. It's normal for a business. They will have 20% capital and 80% loan. Now, forget the government for the moment. That's what they did. They have borrowed 80% of the project from the 4 banks, and 20% they're going to provide themselves as capital. 90 million, they have it. So they guarantee that they do have it. Now, the question of the issue was that those 80%, the 90 is real and is there. The 80%, they borrowed, they need the government that it's there guaranteeing it, but charging for it until, because government has not yet delivered the promised guarantee, which is the security of supply. That's the issue. Well, obviously, we started with the government, with the finance blowing out of proportion. I mean, we're talking of 80 or 360 million. Of course, it's not a small sum. But our people have been burdened not with a guarantee, but with debt. Debt. We have, in other words, we're paying interest on it on an annual basis, 240 million. We're paying as much as percent of GDP, as much as Greece. Greece pays about 3% of the GDP. That's how much we're paying interest, 230 million. They come to about 3% of GDP. On 5,200 million debt, 5.2 billion debt, over 25 years. Guarantees, we've come into the government and we found on paper, at the Treasury, you can go and check, 1.2 billion guarantees. Freeport, did we condemn the government for guaranteeing a loan to build the free port? No, of course it's normal. So, I mean, yeah, but we're creating a lot of this on just false pretenses. We're honestly, there are so many things we should be doing, and I say this because every time I go abroad, you look at Malta and you see other countries trying to take away our competitiveness in the iGaming, in the financial service. You have no idea what some Europeans are doing to us. You know, they're trying through various pretexts, through games, on the sports side, through financial services, through taxation. They even managed to change the VAT on the supply of services so that we will lose millions of revenue. They've succeeded. Okay, I think we can take them in our stride. But all this was so that Malta and Luxembourg will lose their competitiveness.
I understand what you say. Did the government try to get the opposition on board when it came to this loan guarantee, or you didn't even want that kind of thing? Because
on the guarantee?
Yeah, when it came to the loan guarantee, saying, yes, now we're going to do this, can you please come on board with us? Was there any attempt?
To the companies, to Electrogas?
Yeah, to the opposition. Because obviously you're saying the opposition is just hitting off nothing. Was there an attempt by the government?
Well, this is how I mean, everybody has to talk for himself. I mean, in my field, I try as much as possible for every type of legislation to discuss that with my shadow minister. I do that, he comes here, he sits where you are sitting, and we discuss whether it's the financial arbiter or whatever, we will, before we go to committee, money laundering and many other types of legislation. Now that is because financial services have got this aura that the two sides agree and so on and so forth. I think it doesn't mean there shouldn't be an opposition. I don't mean like that. But if there is better relationship between the two sides, I think it would help, yes. And I'm not going to point fingers.
One more question. So how is the 25% reduction in tariffs being funded exactly? Because the reduction has been given, so how is the government making good for this?
Of the tariff?
Yeah, tariff.
Again, look, there's now convincing evidence that we were really a high-cost producing country for electricity. We're the highest amongst them. And it's not difficult to find out why. We had a gas-guzzling motor car, so to speak, Marsa. It's how would I say, it's like leaking oil rather than manufacturing into electricity. Like when you have a very old car leaking and giving you 12 miles to the gallon. Now, compare that to the new technology, when you with a car, with 1 gallon, you can do 42 miles or more. Immediately, the amount of imports you save is enormous. So there are enormous benefits from going away from that Marsa and also from the old Delamara plant into the new technology, whether it's gas. Now they will all be turned to gas, and there's also the interconnector. Now you always use the best. Now all those benefits, which are going to from the investment of today, will come in the next 25 years. We use 25 years because that's the normal lifetime of machinery of that caliber. So the benefits will come 25 years. However, we were suffocating now. We're drowning in competitiveness, high tariffs for the families, for the businesses. So how do you can have a choice. Either you get the benefits over the 25 years, or you bring them, not the whole 25 years, but you bring some of them up front, and you'll get less benefits over the 25 years, because we needed them now. Now it's when we need them, and that was the idea. It was a brilliant idea, that you get the company to pay that amount of money in order to get that tariff reduction for the household, and next year it will be up running. Now, I mean, the project is more than halfway through now. I'm not sure that people are realizing out there, but the turbines are nearly finished in Sweden. The ship is there, the land is being produced, and soon we can, they will start being put into place by early next year, hopefully commissioned by mid-year. So the benefits will soon come up. So what we did was a year or a year and a half before, we paid the benefit. And again, the delays came because of a reason. The electoral program was meant for the the gas plant. And we thought that would save Malta, and so on and so forth. However, we did realize that Malta was on a, like that, but we never thought that it was going to be a stumbling block even to continue with that, with the project. Or let me go a little bit backwards. The reason why we wanted this project to be done by the private sector, because we couldn't trust them and wanted to do it. It had funds, it didn't even have the creditworthiness to borrow. Okay, that was the problem. Now, in the interim, we got the Chinese offer and partnership and strengthened Malta. And that simple, us and Electrogas, or whoever the bidder would have been, came complicated because there was a triangle. And what we had to agree was Malta had to consult with the Chinese, while at the same time we were negotiating that deal. And that took a long time. The legal the Chinese are, it's not a walkover, they are Harvard trained, they come there, every point they ask and continue and so on. So the deal with this Electrogas. There, as I said, there were 4 banks with their 4 respective lawyers. Electrogas and the government are 2 other partners, and then the Independent and so on. So it's a complicated deal, and it takes time. It takes time. On a daily basis, toing and froing, legal terms, paragraph correcting. You have to ensure that when you sign, you know what you're in for. I mean, you have to be quite responsible for that.